Welcome to Tower Talk Business Radio on the voice of Nassau Community College 90.3 WHPC. Tower Talk Business Radio brings you conversations with the top business minds on Long Island and around the nation, including expert consultants and small business owners who have found success, but are also willing to share their top tips, failures, and give gritty, matter-of-fact advice based on their first-hand experience. And now, let's get down to business with Tower Talk Business Radio, powered by the Nassau Community College Foundation.
Hello, and welcome to Tower Talk Business Radio, powered by the Nassau Community College Foundation. My name is Ray Schwetz, AVP of Nephew Business Banking, along with Denisha Boston Hill, CEO, keeper of the brand marketing and digital agency, and we're focused on being the premier resource for business and entrepreneurship. We bring you weekly business advice, tips, tools, and services that help grow your business. Plus, we interview the top leaders in the industry. Today, we're going to be discussing how a person can journey from rising the ladder of success to spiritual enlightenment to helping empower our business brothers and sisters. Yes, folks, our intent is to keep you entertained, informed, enlightened, and empowered. Helping us do so today is our guest, Derek K. Price. He is the president and CEO of New York Plumbing Wholesale and Supply Incorporated. And we're also joined by his colleagues, Sierra Petaway and Angelique Boyer. Thank you very much for joining us on the show today, guys.
Good to be here.
Thank you. Thanks for having us.
All right. Our pleasure, our pleasure. Now, Derek is the president and CEO of New York Plumbing Wholesale Supply Incorporated. He started his career with Blackman Plumbing Supply, where he advanced from warehouse clerk to branch manager over a 20-year period. And he retired from Blackman in 2004 to enter ministry as the senior pastor of the Bethel Christian Center in Massapequa, New York. It was his passion for empowering people spiritually and economically that led him then to open up NYPS in 2009. He's also hosting the Long Island Entrepreneurship Conference, LIEC, featuring keynote speaker Damon John, host of ABC's Shark Tank. So, wow, you guys got a lot going on. Now, Derek, let's start with you. Tell us how this journey for you started.
From the beginning, from the Blackman days?
Yes. How you wound up finding yourself employed at Blackman?
Well, I needed a job. That's one.
That's enough.
My father owned a hardware store in New York City for years. My grandfather, then my father, and I worked for him for little of nothing. It was a family business that could only support really one income. And being married and having one child and one on the way, I needed to find a better job, and went to work for a plumbing company. And from there, went to Blackman in 1989. I'm sorry, folks, I'm telling you my age. And then I was there for about 20 years. I started sweeping floors, working at the warehouse, and ultimately to the counter, then into outside sales. Somewhere in there, I realized that I had a gift to sell. And when I realized that, it took me to an outside sales position. And I was probably the top salesman for the company for years. And then ultimately to a branch manager where I managed an account, did about $7 million a year in business at that branch. And that was my journey at Blackman. But in 2003, I was elected to be the pastor of the Bethel Christian Church. And at the time, I didn't have the passion to do the sales and to be the pastor. So I had to resign.
Right.
And in doing so, I retired in 2004, all the way up into 2008, and right before the housing crisis. And it was a lesson learned because at that point, the membership just started to decline. People didn't have money. And, of course, it was through donations and offerings that I was able to have some kind of income. And I decided to open up a little small plumbing supply of my own out of my garage.
Wow.
And that started in 2008, and that's where it began.
Wow. Well, that's how Amazon started, too, so...
That's true.
Big things come from starting in garages.
That's true. I think it was Microsoft or Windows.
Oh, yeah? Now, tell us a little bit about that re-entering of the business world, how that worked for you.
Re-entering it was a challenge. I was comfortable, and I think that the greatest threat to success is complacency and comfortability. And but the winds of need, and because the economy wasn't doing well, it forced me to have to take care of my family, and I knew I could sell. So deciding to open up this out of my garage, a supply house. The first year I made like $6,000. The second year I made $60,000, and then it just kept growing and growing and growing. So, and finally, I had an opportunity to in 2009 to buy a plumbing supply, and that's New York Plumbing Supply, and it's been history since then.
Yeah, and you've been with them. You've been running them since 2009, so about 10 years now, almost.
10 years. This is our 10-year anniversary in January.
That's awesome. Mm-hmm. Now, how'd you go from that? Well, actually, you know what? Before we get into LIEC, let's talk with your associates here. So, Sierra and Angelique, tell us a little bit about yourselves and how you fit into the picture here.
Okay, well, I am Sierra Petaway. I started out actually working for a process service company in Garden City, actually right down the road in Stewart Avenue. And from there, I then got a job at Dow Jones, and I'm there now as a business manager for Dow Jones Media Group. The Long Island Entrepreneurship Conference kind of got brought to me, and it's something that I'm very passionate about without really being an entrepreneur, but actually just wanting to help other people to reach their dreams and make sure that they get everything that life has for them.
And Angelique, how about you?
Hi. So I work in healthcare. I actually work for Cornell Med, doing their clinical research for their oncology group. But I also got involved in the Long Island Entrepreneurship Conference through my connections with Sierra and Pastor Price, Bethel. And I just also am involved, even though I myself also am not an entrepreneur, but I really do also believe in the vision and everything and all the potential that it has for Long Island, with all of the small business owners that are in Long Island, knowing that there is a niche and there is a need for this. So that's kind of how I also got started in the conference planning.
Very cool. You are listening to Tower Talk Business Radio on the voice of Nassau Community College 90.3 WHPC. I'm Ray Schwetz, and our guest today is Derek K. Price, President and CEO of New York Plumbing Wholesale and Supply, Inc., and we're also joined by Sierra Petaway and Angelique Boyer. All right, so now we're talking about LIEC a little bit. So how did you become involved in this, Derek?
Well, part of my job as a leader and a pastor is to empower people. And one of the things that I've realized over the years is that faith is a key component to any success. But alone, by itself, it's not enough. You need tools. And I want to bring not just the faith aspect, but I want to also bring the tools that can help people to grow their business. I realized for myself that in 10 years, if I knew now what I knew 10 years ago, if I knew now, 10 years ago, what I know now, I would have taken my business to a whole nother level. So the Entrepreneurship Conference is really about helping aspiring entrepreneurs take their business to the next level. Success is a pathway. It takes hard work. It takes commitment, and sometimes people encounter these obstacles in the way, and we want to help them to get through the obstacles to reach that path.
I think that's pretty cool. And you know what? My wife always says, you are where God wants you to be. Yes. So I would imagine that as much as that you went through that learning experience, you going through that, and then having the opportunity now to inspire and help others to overcome those obstacles before they even come their way is pretty awesome. And that opportunity wouldn't be here for you if it wasn't for experiencing what you did along your journey, I would think.
Yes, agreed.
So kudos to you for doing that.
Oh, thank you.
Now, what can our listeners expect from the event? What's involved?
Well, the Long Island Entrepreneurship Conference, we're expecting about 500 people to be there, and our keynote speaker for that event is Damon John from Shark Tank, and I'm sure that most people know who Damon John is, and he's a successful businessman, but he has a story. And people love stories, and what he's going to share with some of the tips about business, but also his story of how he got from one place to another place. And then we have a host of other speakers from different areas of Long Island in New York City, and they're going to come and share their story as well. The theme for our conference is defeating the giant, and we picked that theme because we realized that every single person, I don't care who they are, if they're going to go into business, they've encountered some kind of giant in the way. That giant could be finances. The giant could be cash flow. The giant could be they just need encouragement, fear. But we want to help them face these giants and overcome these giants.
Gotcha. And I would agree that every small business you encounter, whatever it is, the financial need, the competition, how to get the sales, it's tough to be an entrepreneur today. Now, what do you see as kind of the chief challenges for entrepreneurs from your vantage point? And this is certainly open to Sierra and Angelique as well.
Well, when we did some of the stats, we compiled some of the questions and information we received from people interested in this conference, and the one main thing that people face is fear, and fear can be very debilitating. And if sometimes you just need someone to help you get through the fear. So I would say that the biggest one is fear, and one of them is the fear of success.
Okay. Now, what do you mean by the fear of success?
Well, when you're starting a business, there are all kinds of thoughts and challenges that just come up in your mind. Feelings of insecurity. Can you do it? Is it possible? And those can stop you right in your tracks if you don't have someone to encourage you to say, hey, wait a second. We've all been through that. You need to get past your own feelings of weakness and insecurity and fear and just push forward towards your dream and your aspiration. So I think just giving a person that extra little push and say, hey, listen, we all been through it. We're all afraid. Just get past it. Just get through it.
In addition to fear, one of the things that I think is interesting, I sometimes come across, not as often, but it's folks who almost feel like they're not deserving of the success. Have you ever run into that? Because that I find very interesting.
Yes. And
like they're their own worst enemy.
Yeah, and I felt like that not just in business, but throughout my life. We feel like we don't have what it takes and we're not worthy. But faith is a key component to that. And sometimes you have to just look yourself in the mirror and say, you know what? I am worth it. I do have the ability, and I'm not as bad as I think,
Very cool. Now, who inspires you? Because obviously you do a lot of inspiring. That's got to come from somewhere.
Well, I'm inspired by my faith in God. I believe that every individual on the planet has certain innate qualities and gifts. And once you realize that, it helps you, it gives you a certain amount of dignity. And I think dignity is lacking in a lot of people's lives. They don't feel dignified. But believing in God and knowing that we're His offspring brings a certain amount of dignity. And that helps you when you look in that mirror and there's that voice that tells you you can't do it. You kind of say, you know what? I can do it. I can do this. If with God's help, I can make it happen. And I'm a testimony. And the people that are going to be at this conference are testimonies that, they had to look within and say, you know what? There is this strong possibility that I can do this. And they did it, and it worked.
Agreed. Yep. Everybody's got to start somewhere.
Yes, that's true.
You are listening to Tower Talk Business Radio. Our guest today is Derek K. Price, President and CEO of New York Plumbing and Wholesale Supplying. This is Ray Schwetz on the voice of Nassau Community College 90.3 WHPC.
If your skin could talk, would you listen? As your